People returned to Cairo's Liberation Square on Friday to mark, of course, 1 week since Hosni Mubarak relinquished his powers as president. Our correspondent Rawia Rage has the details.
Draped in red, white and black, thousands of Egyptians come to Tahrir Square, this time not in protest, rather to mark their hard-won victory.
Contrary to the scenes of anger and frustration that lasted here in Tahrir Square for days before Hosni Mubarak stepped down, the mood this Friday is one of joy and celebration, smiles everywhere.
And a tribute to the country's military, who even before the end of Mubarak's rule last week was hailed for not obstructing the pro-democracy movement. The military had asked Egyptians to stop their protests, but it did not prevent the gathering on Friday. Instead, Tahrir was surrounded by tanks and soldiers who searched people and regulated traffic. The gathering not only a victory march, but also a memorial to the 300-plus people who lost their lives in the uprising. The highlight of the day, an appearance by Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, one of Sunni Islam's most prominent clerics. In a heartfelt ceremony, he praised the revolution, the youth behind it, and the military, though he did make a direct request.
I call on the Egyptian army to liberate us from the government that Mubarak formed in his last days. We want a new government that does not include the old faces that remind people of poverty and misery.
But he also urged patience with the country's interim military leadership. The current cabinet was appointed by Mubarak before he stepped down. A reshuffle is expected in the coming few days.
I came here all the way from Upper Egypt because all I want is an end to corruption. We want this government changed. We don't want Mubarak's party members in power.
It is true that we need to be patient, but at the same time we need to remind the government and whoever is there that we are still in the streets. And we still have a lot of other demands that they need to pay attention to.
And until they see the country's 30-year emergency law lifted and the thousands of political prisoners released, many say they will keep the pressure. Rawia Rage, AlJazeera, Cairo.
Well, while that was going on, there was another protest in another part of the city. There, supporters of the country's ousted president gathered. They're not happy with the way that the former leader was removed from power. Right, we're going to take a quick break now. Still to come on the program, though, the U.S. appoints its new special representative on Afghanistan and Pakistan following the death of Richard Holbrooke. And in Uganda, voters turn out for the second election in 30 years. We'll have all the details after the break.
Hello again. Well, let's start off with the weather over Australia, because as well as some cyclones, we're also seeing some torrential downpours elsewhere. It's in the southeast corner where we've got this thick blanket of cloud that's gradually marching its way across us. Torrential downpours out of this and a few areas of flooding as well. This system's still going to be with us as we head through the remainder of Saturday, but not into Sunday. Sunday, it should eventually begin to clear away towards the east. Elsewhere, though, we'll still have lots of wet weather around. Darwin still not too far away from the remains of our cyclone Carlos, so yet more heavy downpours still to come here. And then this circulation here is another tropical cyclone. This one's Diane. Gradually it's running its way southwards, but it's going to continue to throw lots of wet weather across Western Australia over the next few days, and there could be some flooding here as well. Now, meanwhile, while all of that is going on around Australia, further east, we've also got a cyclone developing here as well. Now, this one appears to be running its way towards the southeast, so hopefully we'll avoid Fiji. Here it's still going to be very, very wet and pretty windy over the next few days, but hopefully we won't see the eye of that storm hit any of the islands. A little bit further north and for us in China, it's rather wet at the moment and not that warm for Hong Kong either, only getting to 17 degrees.
It's filled with surprises, yet with a touch of the familiar. It's all those things you imagined, and some you didn't. It intrigues, and fascinates and often delights. It's a story of the world, and it's one with many endings. The 5-star global network fly to over 90 destinations on board one of the world's youngest fleets. Qatar Airways, world's 5-star airline.
Hello there, welcome back. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Bahrain's king has asked his crown prince to start national dialogue with all parties over the continuing unrest in the country. That's after more violence there on Friday. Up to 27 people, meanwhile, are reported to have died in clashes in Libya. And there's been more violence during democracy protests in Yemen. 5 people have died, dozens more are injured. Now, in the next few hours, the UN Security Council will vote on whether Israel should stop all settlement activity in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. Jewish settlements are already deemed illegal under international law. In 1979, the UN Security Council adopted Resolution 446. Now, that stated that settlement building on occupied Palestinian land had no legal validity. What's more, construction activity constituted a, quote, serious obstruction to lasting peace in the Middle East. However, despite all of this, the number of settlers has grown steadily since 1979, standing today at roughly 462,000. Well, we hope to have live reaction from New York and Ramallah as soon as we get more details on that vote. Before that, though, police in Afghanistan say 9 people are dead after a bomb blast in the eastern city of Khost. A further 30 people were injured in the attack. The Taliban has claimed responsibility. Well, 2 months after the death of Richard Holbrooke, Mark Grossman, a retired diplomat, is to take over as the U.S. Special Envoy to Afghanistan and Pakistan. Grossman is expected to help manage Washington's often tense relations with Afghanistan President Hamid Karzai. And ties with Pakistan have soured further following the arrest of a U.S. Embassy employee over the killing of 2 Pakistanis. Washington is seeking his release on the grounds of diplomatic immunity. Well, Kamal Haider is in Pakistan's Swat Valley for us. He says Mark Grossman's appointment comes at a tense time for the 2 countries.
The United States has appointed Mark Grossman to be their man for Afghanistan, Pakistan. That replacement was much awaited after the death of Richard Holbrooke. Now, the new envoy will be taking charge at a time when relations between Islamabad and Washington are strained. The fact that the United States will also begin its withdrawal from Afghanistan. 2 of its senior generals are likely to be leaving this year from that theater. And the fact that the U.S. ambassador to Kabul, Eikenberry, is also due to leave. So the new envoy will have challenges awaiting